You're listening to the podcast or whether you're watching us on the podcast. Man, we're glad that you're here. You know, Pastor Kerry, here lately, that's all I've been listening to is a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
At work, we can have our earphones on all day long because I work by myself, and very frequently do I take them out. And man, I think I've listened to every worship song in the world, even in different languages, man. So I'm like, man, I got to get something else, man. And so, man, I'm listening to some podcasts, and there's some really good podcasts out there. But so anyway, I know how important they are, and then I see ours come across the screen. I'm like, hey, I know that one.
Yeah.
So anyway, good to have everybody, and please let us know if you're listening, watching, whatever. We would really love to hear from you, and we want to put out. There's some things I want to talk to you later about putting out on podcasts because there's some very important topics that I think a lot of times we don't talk about that we can talk about on the podcast that's very necessary. For instance, one of the things I'm dealing with right now is working 40 hours and still pastoring. And believe it or not, I found a podcast where a couple of pastors talk about the hurdles and the struggles and how to manage that. And it really, really helped me. So I want to find some really, really good stuff that'll really help people in certain areas. But man, God bless, man. Good to see you.
Good to see you,
good
man.
Good to be here this morning.
Yes, sir.
Anything new? Any different movies you've seen this week or anything?
We didn't see anything this week, man, but everything's going good. Having a good time. We enjoyed the weekend, just hung out, ran a few errands yesterday, things like that. But really, man, just honestly, dude, staying indoors away from this heat.
Yeah, this heat will get you, man. Unfortunately, I have horses, so I have to just take some C3 and get out there, man, or C4 or whatever it is, energy drink, to get out there and ride horses. But it's going good. I'm going to go see Sound of Freedom today. I tried to talk my wife into going yesterday. She didn't want to. My son came back. He watched it, and he gave good raves on it. So we're going to go watch it today. So it's going to be good. But anyway, we're talking about truth over trend.
Yes, sir.
And we had Pastor Janie with us last week.
Yes, sir.
I don't know if she's watching this podcast this week. She says she's a faithful viewer, but we'll find out. Okay, we'll find out. If she is, she'll text me and say, God bless you, Pastor.
No, she'll text you and say, go Steelers.
Okay. If she's watching, she'll text me and say, go Steelers. But if she doesn't text me this week, then that means she's not keeping up with the podcast.
Yeah,
so anyway.
This is an accountability thing.
Yeah, we'll talk to her later.
We're holding you accountable.
Praise God. So let's get into it, man. I'll let you say it.
Yeah. So as you know, we've been talking about truth over trend, church. And again, thank you all for tuning in and watching us. Like you were saying at your job, sometimes you listen to every song there is, you listen or you've watched, and then it's like, man, I need something new. All the more reason why we do this weekly.
Exactly.
The need for new content is needed.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? And the thing is, we do this to help our church grow. And if God uses it to reach a further platform, man, that's even better.
Exactly.
And so, the whole point when we talked about doing this was for discipleship purposes, using it to equip our church, to encourage them. And so, if this is, like you said, if this is something that is doing that, man, that's what it was always meant for. So this season, we're talking about truth over trend, which was a sermon series that we did in our church on Sunday and Wednesday nights a couple of months ago. And then, one of the things that we really nailed on the past few weeks was identity. Identity. I'm just curious, Pastor Chris, when you were growing up, was there anybody you wanted to be when you were growing up?
Man, to be honest with you,
I know you always talk about MC Hammer and the parachute pants.
Yeah, that was all right, man. But to be honest with you, I got when I started 8th grade, when God really changed my life around, I started getting back into athletics and things like that. Later, my second round of 8th grade, because the first one didn't go so well. But anyway, my second round, at the end, God saved me, did some work in my life, and I started getting back into sports and stuff. And man, I just got an infatuation with lifting, and I wanted to be Arnold Schwarzenegger.
You wanted to be a bodybuilder?
Yeah,
huh?
I wanted to be a bodybuilder so bad, man. Yeah. And I had pictures all over the wall, the Muscle magazines. I had them all over. I mean, it was crazy. I lifted all the time. I did it. I mean, I wore the clothes. I mean, it was crazy, man. So I wanted to be somebody like Arnold or the guy he hung out with, Franco. All those guys,
Franco Columbu.
Man. Franco Columbu, all those guys. And so, man, I really wanted to be a bodybuilder. And I'm not lying, man. first year we got married, Angela and I was sitting in my efficiency. I ran into a guy at a nutrition store. He was promoting bodybuilders, raising them up, getting them into the circuit, all this stuff. So anyway, we talked, and he interviewed me, whatever. He wanted me to get started. He went to the house. He talked to me. Angela sat with me, and man, he was gonna hire me, man. I mean, like, give me a full-time bodybuilding job. I was on the road to this, man. I was like, wow, this is the ultimate goal.
Right.
I mean, I wanted a pastor. I knew I was gonna pastor full-time, but
Yeah.
this is like my childhood dream, man.
Yeah.
So Angela's just watching like, yeah, you ain't doing this. But I was trying to, and he said, you're going to have to sleep when I tell you to sleep. You're going to have to eat what I tell you to eat. You're going to have to lift when I tell you to lift. I mean, and so anyway, long story short, he left, and I was like, isn't this awesome? I'll be able to do ministry and full-time bodybuilding, whatever. This is going to be so good. And she's like, there is no way I'm going to let you go up there on a Saturday, walk around in a bikini, and then preach on a Sunday morning. You ain't doing that. So there goes my hopes and dreams.
Yep, shattered.
Being a bodybuilder. But I want to be a bodybuilder, man.
You ever seen Pumping Iron?
Yeah.
That was a good movie, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, me and Aaron are always sharing stuff from that movie just to make each other laugh.
Yeah, and it's crazy because now my son is into it big time.
Yeah. I wanted to be two people. Obviously, being a basketball person, I wanted to be Michael Jordan growing up. I don't think there was a kid growing up in the 80s or 90s who didn't want to be Michael Jordan.
Everybody wanted to be Michael Jordan.
I mean, even if you didn't play basketball, you wanted to be like Mike. Remember that song? Sometimes I dream that he is me, like Mike.
Yeah.
I could be like Mike,
Yeah.
right? Everybody wanted to be Mike. So I wanted to be Michael Jordan, but the TV person I wanted to be growing up was Zach Morris from Saved by the Bell.
Yeah, man.
Now, some of you youngsters out there, I was like, who the heck is Zach Morris, right? But Zach Morris was the dude, right?
Yeah.
Saved by the Bell was a TV show back in the 90s that was about high school kids in high school.
Yeah.
And I remember watching that show, and I wanted to be Zach Morris so bad. He had the cool hair. He had the big cell phone, right?
Yeah.
And then he had the pretty girlfriend, right? All the girls wanted to be with him, and everybody wanted to be around. I wanted to be Zach Morris, man. And I would literally like model my elementary childhood around him. Like, I have pictures of like my hair like his. I dress like him.
There you go, man.
I wanted to be Zach Morris so dang bad, right? Like I based my whole identity around I talked like him and everything. I had me a little nerd friend that was like Screech, to do all my homework and stuff. So, but yeah, man.
I was in high school actually when that was in, and I'm not gonna lie to you, man. Some of us guys were talking about which one of those girls we're gonna marry. So that, and I'll tell you who else we were thinking we're gonna marry. We're gonna marry some of the girls on 90210. I don't know if you remember that.
I remember
but that was like,
90210.
whoa.
Yeah. That was the next level.
Anyway,
I remember 90210.
This is reality, man.
Yeah, this is real. So our identity at one point was based up in people who we wanted to be like, right?
Yeah.
So like we changed our lives, we changed how we ate, we changed how we dressed so that we could be in a sense like these people. Mm-hmm. And I've said this because I work with teenagers for so long. I don't believe there's anything wrong with having somebody that inspires you. Mm-hmm. I think that's a good thing.
It's a good thing.
There's a good thing to have people who inspire you, who encourage you to say, you know what, I want to change my eating habits. I want to change, certain habits in my life, and this person inspires me. I will say I do believe it's dangerous when you go beyond that and you try to be like, okay, I am so-and-so. Like you change your whole life completely.
Trying to be like them.
Yeah, just trying to be that person.
Yeah, and preachers and pastors fall into that category as well.
Yeah, exactly.
I know pastors that will study a certain minister that's maybe got some weight behind him, or he's popular, or just whatever, and they'll start saying things that they say when they have no business saying those things, or just doing things and acting that way, and you're like, man, I think he's gone a little bit too overboard on that.
And I think too, like along what you're saying, like specifically, like we're talking about like us in ministry, we've seen pastors and leaders who, if they see a younger preacher or just a preacher who's quote unquote popular, right? Who's got a lot of, as the culture says, they clout or has a lot of influence. The way they dress are like, in order for me to get that status, I have to talk like them. I have to have the same hairdo as them. I have to dress like them. So you'll see dudes wearing skinny jeans that ain't got no business wearing skinny jeans, bro. Like some dudes out there, I was about to say some of you, but some dudes out there, man, man ain't
Come
got
on, man.
no business rocking them skinny jeans.
They're called skinny jeans for a reason,
Yeah,
man.
man. And I'm just like, ooh, wee. Like, but the whole reason is because they're like, I want to get to that level.
Yeah.
Thinking like that's what it is.
Yeah, that's
that
not
gets them there, right? And really what it is, they're trying to hop on the trend.
Yeah.
Right? The trend. When I've always said, man, just be authentic.
Yeah.
Be who you are. You know, in all honesty, be who you are. And so we were saying, like, you know, I believe it's dangerous when you can base your whole identity
Yeah.
around, like, this is who I'm going to be. And aside from ministry, I've seen this in youth ministry for so long. I'll see kids, you know, the danger side of it. So let's use bodybuilding as an example. I know you know who this person is, Coach at the gym. You know, I remember one time back when I was working out at Freedom Fitness, I'll never forget, he shared a story about a young man he knew who wanted to be a bodybuilder so bad, and he wanted to be like this one specific bodybuilder, and the young man got hooked on steroids. He was he was like 20, 21 years old, and ended up overdosing and dying because he was trying so hard to look like this one individual. And so that is the dangers of wrapping your identity in
Yeah.
somebody that God didn't create you to be.
Yeah.
Again, that's when you know you've gone too far from being inspired to, you know, being, I don't even know what the term you would use, like a fanatical fan or whatever. I don't even know
An
how you would say.
infatuation,
An
maybe?
infatuation, yeah. Where you've gone like way too far.
Where you start doing things that you shouldn't be doing just to get there.
Yeah,
You know?
to look like somebody, you know.
Yeah.
We see this in women too.
Yeah.
Every woman out there wants to be a Kardashian.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So they'll get the surgeries, they'll buy the makeups,
Yeah.
they'll do all this stuff
Yeah.
because they want the same, you know, level of influence and things like that. I've even, you know people change the way they talk.
Yeah,
You know, just so
absolutely.
that, you know, to be like that. And it's just like, man, be who God
And it's
has
gotten,
created you to be.
you know, it's gotten so expensive for people now
Yeah.
because now it's like plastic surgery and all that stuff is just so common everywhere now, and it's a little bit more affordable than what it used to be, but it's still expensive, you
Yeah.
know, and people are spending all kinds of money just to look a certain way,
Yeah.
man, to feel good about themselves. It's only temporary.
Yeah.
But, you know, like you said, pastors, and I'm going to say this, not only are they having an issue with their identity, but I think their whole vision and church also, they begin to mix that with that identity because
Yeah.
they start watching,
Yeah.
wow, well, this church is doing this, maybe we ought to do that too. This church is growing, and we need to do that too.
Yeah.
And we need to do this, and we need to do that. And the thing is, what if God didn't call that
Exactly.
stuff into your ministry,
Exactly,
your
yeah.
vision?
Exactly,
But
yeah.
yet we're trying to, you know, and churches are trying to keep up with the Joneses,
Yeah.
just like people in the neighborhoods.
Absolutely.
And we're killing ourselves.
Yeah.
And killing our people and going off in a different direction.
Yeah.
Trying to be a church that God didn't call us to be a church.
Exactly.
And I'm starting to you know, because that comes on all of us,
Right.
especially when you go through discouraging times or the numbers aren't there. But Pastor Kerry, one of the things that I've been hearing a lot of pastors talk about as they're ministering on podcasts, because some ministers will just do an intro and then go into their message. I hear all this all the time, even from some very influential pastors. I hear them in their sermons say, "Hey, look around you. Look at all the empty spaces." Everybody's saying that, you know, at a lot of churches. So your church, pastor, is not the only one that maybe is struggling right now. A lot of people are struggling, you know, but some people are going to be transparent, and some people are going to try to just give you the highlights to make it look like, hey, this is what's going on.
Yeah.
And it's not. And you're killing yourself trying to be a highlight reel.
Yeah.
When it's not for real.
Yeah. And that's called comparison.
Yes.
And comparison. I forget who it was who said it, so don't, you know, tag me for plagiarism. But I did not say this quote. But somebody once said, "Comparison is the thief of joy."
Yes. I heard that by Morrison, but he quoted somebody else
Yeah.
as well.
I don't know who said it, but they said comparison is the thief of joy.
Yes.
Okay, comparison. And the reason why is that because, man, when you're too busy looking to the left, to the right, you're too busy trying to imitate this person, that person, and you're like, all of a sudden you're doing everything. You got the clothes, you got the hairdo, you know, you spent all the money on this, that, whatever, and all of a sudden you're not trending in a sense. You're not getting the same type of reaction. You're not getting the same type of response. Guess what? You're like, what in the world happened? What the heck, dude? Like, I did everything. Like, I've spent the money. I've changed my appearance. I've changed the way I talk. I've changed how I do my sermons.
Yeah.
You know, I've done everything possible. Why is it still not happening?
Yeah.
It's because you're doing things through comparison.
Exactly.
You're not being who God has called you created. We're not
Exactly.
being who God has called us created to be. And the thing is, man, comparison is very, very dangerous. We talked about, so in our field, ministry, you have to be very, very careful. So like there's one conference that we go to every year. When I first started going, probably the first 2-3 years, I fell into that comparison trap where I was like, man, I want our youth ministry to be just like this,
Yeah.
right? And so, and again, there's nothing wrong with being inspired, right? Absolutely nothing wrong with being inspired. But okay, look, let's go back. Let's hit the trenches hard, and let's serve, and let's build the
Yeah.
youth ministry, healthy, and it's, right. It's another thing to fall into comparison. Be like, look, if we want to get on this level, we have got to do this specific thing, right?
Yes.
And so, while I think there are some models that do help, I have to also remind myself like that ministry is different from our ministry.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And just the bottom line, like who they reach is different from who we
Yeah.
reach.
Yeah.
A lot of things go into
different.
play, right?
Yeah.
That's different from theirs and us. We're all building the kingdom together.
Mm-hmm.
We all live and worship the same God, but their ministry is different from our ministry,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so that was something that, finally I said, all right, look, we can adopt a few things, but modify them to fit our
Fit
culture,
us, yeah.
to who we reach, to who we do. And so, comparison, if you're not careful, man, it can take you down a path, a very, very dark path that, is not healthy for you,
Yeah.
and it won't be healthy for your team. In all honesty, it's just not going to be good for you.
I listened to 2 preachers this week on comparison because I
Yeah.
started falling into that because I'm in a place right now in my life where there's a lot of transition going on, family, financially, everything's just not what I expected at the beginning of when me and Angela started. There's a lot of transition going on, and so a lot of discouragement, also a lot of challenges, and then my age is coming into play now. It's just different now than when I first started in ministry. So there's a lot of things that I'm kind of limited in. So anyway, I got all this while around me I'm hearing, well, so and so is started up this company, and so is making these investments, and so is buying. So all these people, and I'm thinking, I feel like I'm looking from the outside in, like, wow, that was supposed to have been me, or I should have been able to do that, and I'm in a different transition in my life. Okay, so I started falling into that, and I got into the Word, and I quickly. But that's the key, Pastor Kerry, is we're all going to be prone to that. So it's very important that you stay grounded, get in the Word very quickly. I could have let it grow all day. I could have let it grow all week. I could have let it grow until it was out of control and I made some bad mistakes. But right then and there, when I felt that coming on me, man, I switched over to a podcast and I looked for 2 preachers. I found Lisa Bevere, who spoke on it. Man, you've got to listen to this.
She's awesome, dude.
It's good.
John Bevere's wife?
She was
Yeah.
54 years old when she went through this, but she talks about a story when she looked on this, I don't know if it was an internet page or what it was, but it said, here are the 10 most influential women preachers in America or whatever. Well, she scrolled through there and she said, man, I wonder what number I am. She wasn't on there, dude.
Oh, man.
And she freaked out.
Yeah.
Like she got upset.
Yeah.
She got upset. She freaked out. She's like, what is going on? I'm doing this. I'm doing that. Whatever. She went in and she talked to her husband, which is John, you
Yeah.
know, which is
Yeah.
she
Yeah.
goes in there, complains to him and says, this is what's going on. He gives her a scripture on comparison. And she's like, okay, I don't want to talk to you right now. And so she goes out. She seeks somebody else out. Her friend told her the same thing, this and that, whatever. So she realized that where her path was going,
Yeah.
and she had to take it. God had to deal with her on
Yeah.
that, because it eventually, comparison will also lead to bitterness.
Mm-hmm.
It'll lead to envy,
Jealousy.
and it'll in jealousy. Yeah, and the gentleman from he's in the Grapevine also, not Ed Young, but there's another gentleman. He always has Jimmy Evans at his church. Gosh, Morris, I think.
Robert Morris?
Robert Morris. He spoke on comparison.
Mm-hmm.
And you would think Robert Morrison is, gosh, people probably are comparing themselves to him,
Mm-hmm.
Well, he had a comparison problem. Even now, not too long ago, he was listening to the Jimmy Evans at his church, and he's like, man, I wish I could preach like that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is Robert Morrison,
Yeah.
dude. What is wrong with you,
Yeah.
man? So anybody can fall into that trap.
Yeah.
So he talks about how he began to fall into that. This is what he said, man. He said, comparison is an attitude that we can catch. And if you the way to get out of it is you gotta start when you start feeling that comparison get on you. You got to switch that over and start thanking God for what you do have and where you are at, and it's called gratitude. That's why it's part of attitude. And he mixed them. He said gratitude is a word mixed in with two words, meaning grace and attitude. So you got to have a graceful attitude and say, God, if it wasn't for your grace, I wouldn't have what I have now,
Exactly,
man.
yeah, man.
And so, man, when you start doing that, you're like, whoa. Because, you know, I know people that are probably looking at my life saying, man, I wish I could be at that place. And so, man, comparison is a killer. It can kill some churches, some pastors, and people will get in debt and ruin their lives
There you go.
just because of comparison.
Yeah, let's go there because you're right. People will go, again, we're talking about identity, right? We're talking about truth over trend, the truth about identity, how people, you know, when they get so caught up in comparing their lives, and they'll go to the extreme, you know, people
Exactly.
will get into some crazy debt trying to compare their lives to other people.
Exactly.
They'll get into ridiculous home debts that they can't afford because they want a home just like so-and-so,
Exactly.
right? They will get into a ridiculous car debt just because they want to say, yo, that's my car, and, you know, I'm able to keep up with them. Again, people will spend tons of money. Again, I'm all for education, right? I'm all for it. But people who can't afford to send their kids to like private schools and stuff like that, they'll do it, you know, just because, you know, again, just want to live a life of comparison. You know, my kids go here is also, you know, stuff like that. And so comparison, yes, comparison. Living a life of comparison, man, people will go into
It'll get
some
you.
serious debt trying to live in a life of comparison. And again, that's not healthy for you. You
Exactly.
can't live a life of freedom constantly trying to fight to get out of debt
Yeah.
because you're living a life of comparison.
2 Corinthians 10:12 says, not that we dare to classify or compare ourselves with some of those who are commending themselves, but when they measure themselves by one another and compare themselves with one another, they are without understanding.
Yeah.
One of the dangers and pitfalls of a young preacher is comparison, man.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, I'm telling you, it's a funny story, man, but I remember when I was ordained as a youth pastor, and so I've got my first youth group. Man, poor first youth group that I had, man. I put them through the ringer, man.
Yeah.
By the way, Angela was part of that group anyway. And so anyway, man, it was funny because I would listen to T.D. Jakes one week. So guess who's showing up Sunday morning to teach Sunday?
Jakes.
Man, I would do a T.D. Jakes that
Yeah.
Sunday morning, man.
Yeah.
To about 10, 12 young people, man.
Yeah.
Then I would listen to a Rod Parsley that week. Guess who would show up Sunday morning to preach? Rod Parsley.
Parsley.
I had the towel and everything, dude. When young preachers get that towel, I say, I know who you're listening to, bro. I didn't go as, you know, when I saw Benny Hinn, I was like, whoa, I got to get me a white suit and a jacket, man, that I could throw on people, but I didn't go that far.
Yeah.
Anyway, but young preachers can fall in this comparison, man.
Yep.
And young preachers can feel like, man, my church is not doing good. My church is not, because you're trying to always chase somebody else's vision.
Yeah.
And you can't do that. You got to do what God has called you to do. I think that's what I like about our ministry, Pastor Kerry, is, you know, especially like within the pastors team, man, you talk about a diverse
Very diverse.
group of people.
Very, very diverse.
You know?
I will say that we are
I mean,
very,
we
very
are
diverse.
we're in there speaking Spanglish, man, you know? Pastor Kerry sometimes is lost.
I'm just
and I have
lost
to
sometimes.
translate some stuff. And then Sister Yoli's lost a lot. We have to translate stuff. But then we got different cultures in our church as well. You know, we've got some homies, we've got some cowboys, we've got some. We got a little bit of everybody, you know, and it's awesome, and that's the way it should be. We shouldn't just have a certain group of people. That's what makes life interesting.
Yeah.
And I think as a pastor, you have to say, hey, you know, maybe you don't bring to the table his gift or what he does or what she does or how they speak, but you're original. And you're made for a certain way, the way you are, and somehow, some way, God's going to use that differently than everybody else. Just continue seeking God and be who God has called you to be. But there's nothing wrong with having somebody in your life like you said, that makes you kind of want to raise the bar in your life.
It sharpens you.
Exactly. That maybe kind of makes you feel like, golly, I'm not praying enough, man.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I thought I was in the Word, but no, this dude's in. I got to get more in the Word. I mean, it's good to have people that will kind of push you to do a little bit more, a little
Yeah.
better.
Exactly.
But not to the point where you emulate them totally.
Yeah.
That's not what God wants.
Absolutely. So yeah, comparison, y'all. Comparison. If you live that trend, if you live that life where you're living life of comparison, well, you're living according to trend. Because again, we talk about young preachers and even senior, older pastors deal with this as well.
Yeah.
Right. Again, same conference that we go to. Right. I'll see some older pastors,
They're trying too
to
hard.
dress like, 21-year-old kids. And I'm like, that's not you. I can tell that's not you. Now, I've seen older pastors in their 60s and 70s
They can pull it off.
but that's who they've been their whole life.
Yeah.
They're just being who they've always been. But I've also seen something I'm like, I know this is
Yeah.
the first pair of Jordans you've ever bought.
Yeah.
I know for a fact you ain't ever worn those type of pants or jackets, the bomber jackets. I know for a fact that's not you.
Yeah.
I know you ain't ever bought a pair of Dunks in your life, right?
Yeah, man.
And, and so it's like, look, when it comes to identity, be true to who you are. Because like I've always said, live life being authentic rather than living life to be accepted.
Exactly.
That's just so key. And so that is truth. Truth, okay? Don't live a life of comparison because, man, I'm telling you, comparison will lead you down a path it'll rob you from your true identity, who God has always created you to be.
And that's even good for church members.
Yeah.
Because church members have a way of, well, we went to this conference at this church, and, well, we came back to our church, and it's just, it's just,
that's so
man,
good.
we're just so far behind. We're just
Yeah.
not up to date. We're just
Yeah.
not doing what they're doing. Pastor, I think I want to be a part of that. I think God is already calling me to.
Yeah, comparison.
You're comparing,
Yeah.
that's what you're doing.
Yep.
And okay, that's great. They were able to do that. Wonderful. And a great bar that they set. Wonderful. But is that what God is calling us to do? And that's not the purpose to go to a conference like that. It's to go to inspire you
Yeah, get
to
equipped.
come back and push. Here's my question is, the easiest thing is to do is to run and be a part of that church that's already doing what you like. And it's already done, Or maybe God's calling you to come and improve some things here, instead of just complaining about it and comparing your pastor to that pastor, comparing the singer to that singer, comparing the building to that. Or maybe God has called you back to your home base to make a difference somehow. We all talk about, oh, God, use me. Oh, God, give me faith. Oh, God, send me to the mission. Well, your church may be that place.
Yeah.
So be careful with comparison because it will sidetrack you.
Yes, sir. Well, that's all the time we got today, man.
Wow.
That's all the time we got today. So the next 2 weeks we'll look at compromise and confusion.
Okay.
For the next 2 weeks, okay? But again, comparison, y'all. Don't live a life of comparison, okay? So listen, every Thursday you can catch these on video on Facebook at Ministerio de la Vida, or if you haven't liked that page, go ahead and like that. Or you can catch us on YouTube at MNV Lubbock. Hit that subscribe and hit that bell for notifications, all right? You can catch us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. Just search New Life Podcast, and that'll pop up for you. So we want to encourage y'all. That's every Thursday, 7 p.m. And then if you want to catch one in Spanish, that is on every Tuesday at 7 p.m. as well, okay? So, again, live a life of truth over trend. We love y'all, and we'll see y'all next week.
God bless.